A 9-year-old child transforms his mother's life by giving a police officer a message. Everybody has had poor luck at some point in their lives, and similar to a curse, these misfortunes frequently persist until there is nothing left to do. Things are said to happen in threes most of the time, but sometimes they don't. This single mother was absolutely exhausted and felt like she had everything on her plate. That is, until her kid accomplished something amazing. Amanda had experienced a difficult day. Indeed, it looked like those days occurred every day in general. The single mother had been going through financial difficulties for some time, trying to provide her child the best she could, and then her precious boy was ill, just when she thought things couldn't get much worse. Already anxious about her son's health, she was burdened with the additional responsibility of covering her son's medical expenses. Amanda begged for things to get better, as she was really at the end of hope, but she had no idea that it would be her 9-year-old son who came through for her. Amanda and her kid resided in Tonawanda, which is located in Erie County, New York. She prayed that things would improve for them, since they had just fallen on really difficult times. But for some reason, she kept becoming worse and worse in various circumstances. For a time now, Amanda felt as like her life was getting out of hand. But if there was one thing she knew, it was that she needed to get back up and carry on for the benefit of her kid. Regretfully, her father went away in 2015. The devoted mother discovered a parking ticket on her windshield as she made her way back to her car after the incredibly emotional funeral. Amanda hurried to the courts because she wanted to take care of it right away, but unfortunately, when she got out, she discovered that another police officer had given her a second parking ticket. Amanda was worn out, and one day she came home to find that things might actually get worse, just when she had assumed they couldn't. When Amanda got home, she discovered that her landlord had kicked her out, and she and her son were going to have a difficult legal struggle to resolve the issue. Amanda repeatedly expressed her concerns and difficulties during the session, which eventually came to an end, pleading with the court for assistance and insisting that her predicament wasn't the result of a lack of effort. There was nowhere to park because the courthouse was in a congested, busy location. So in the hopes that her car would be safe, she parked where there were no parking signs. She couldn't believe she spotted the same police officer scribbling out another parking ticket as she was making her way to her car. She pondered what she had done to warrant such a negative turn of events as she looked up to the sky. Amanda was forced to put on a brave front for her child while having to fight to pay for her father's burial, pay all of her parking charges, and locate the money for a new apartment. She had no idea that things were about to grow worse. Amanda's will to continue living for her son Noah was the one thing that kept her going, despite everything else was going wrong in her life. Every parent understands what it's like to have their children as your first priority and your willingness to go above and beyond for them. She got a call one day from her son's school, informing her that he had been ill throughout the day and needed to get to the hospital right away. She obviously hurried to pick him up from the nurse's office and took him to the hospital, where medical professionals attended to him straight away. All Amanda wanted was for her kid to feel better. She was in a panic. She was just about maintaining her composure until she saw the doctor's bill, even though she knew she had to be tough. Amanda never imagined that her situation would worsen to the point where she would need a doctor's note to push herself over her breaking point. She was doing her best to just keep going since there didn't appear to be any other option because things had become so bad. Her work was underpaying, her bills were piling up, and she had no one to turn to for support or even to beg for a small amount of assistance. She could truly feel the burden of being a single mom and really didn't know what to do. All she needed was for someone to support her and reassure her that things will work out. These difficult moments made her mourn her father even more, as she continues to grieve for him. He might have helped her feel better. Amanda looked at the doctor's bill again, and her heart fell even more. She was aware that she couldn't afford the co-payment no matter what she did. At that moment, she told herself, "This is it. Enough is enough," she said, and the doctor and she got into a furious confrontation. Although Amanda was quite angry, she thought the doctor's cost was far more than necessary. They both shouted so loudly that most of the people who were waiting in the office heard about Amanda's financial struggles for the first time, including her son. The small man believed it was his responsibility to take action, even though he had no idea how to change his mother's situation. At least that was how it seemed like the mother had reached her lowest point. She had to overdraft her account to pay the copay. The $15 she had in her pocket at the moment was all she had, and she used it to buy her kid breakfast at Denny's and spend the last few dollars at the arcade. She reasoned that after his hospital stay, this would be a lovely gift for him, even in the middle of pandemonium. Then, as Amanda and Noah were leaving the arcade, they noticed something that stopped them in their tracks. His mother, noticing his alteration, whispered to her son that yes, the policeman who had issued her all those parking citations was in the restaurant. Amanda felt her entire body seized with rage. This was a man who, unknowingly, had caused her so much more stress while she was only attempting to resolve an already existing problem. She wanted to yell at the policeman, tell him how bad things were for her and her kid, and tell him how overwhelmed she felt. She considered telling him exactly what he deserved, that he needed to put himself in her position. If it had been her, how would he have felt? Then something stopped her when she thought she was no longer able to control her emotions. She felt awful that Noah was now aware of her issues and thought she had failed as a mother as she watched him eat breakfast that morning. Her financial problems were on her mind constantly, and she kept wondering how she was going to pull them out of this predicament. Amanda was upset that her predicament was becoming worse since this specific police officer seemed to just keep showing up. She tried, but she was unable to unwind. Because he looked up to them so much, Noah had always told his mother that he wanted to be a police officer when he grew up, and that this was his lifetime desire. He was always so fascinated by police officers and yearned to speak with them. But now that he knew about his mother's parking issues, he was beginning to feel confused. As they ate breakfast, Noah became aware that they were sitting next to Ryan Benites, a Tonawanda Police Department officer who was dining by himself. He could tell by looking at his mother that she was upset and that certain things were on repeat in her head. As Noah considered his options, he became anxious. He had two options for his next move: bravery or being really foolish and repentant. He definitely didn't want to put Amanda through any more hardship. Having raised him alone, Noah's mother instilled in him the value of treating others with respect and good manners, reminding him repeatedly to treat people as you desire to be treated. She didn't want to tell him what she thought of the police officer because she wanted to set a good example for him, and she knew that Noah looked up to them, but in every sense of the term, she was not prepared for what transpired next. Amanda was making a lot of effort to maintain composure. Her thoughts spiraled, as they do when we're depressed, and she began to think about her dad and how she hoped she could bring him back to ask him what to do in instances like this. Amanda had faith in her own abilities, but all she really wanted was a little assistance and the ability to ease Noah's and her own problems. Being ashamed is a difficult feeling, and as she stood there, she felt completely humiliated that the only money she had for their breakfast was at that moment. She was pleased of her kid and realized she could never have imagined what he would do next. Noah was quite eager to approach Officer Benitez and discuss the parking citations. He felt compelled to shield his mother from him as soon as he saw her staring at him. He had been gathering the nerve to approach the officer when all of a sudden he became extremely bashful and was at a loss for words. Even though he really wanted to, he was intimidated by the scenario and lacked the necessary confidence. As Noah finished his meal, he gave careful thought to how he would approach the policeman. In any case, he was aware that he needed to convey his point, and all of a sudden, he did. He nodded to himself as if he had just made a decisive choice as he came up with a strategy. After cleaning himself up, Noah approached the counter to have a conversation with one of the restaurant's waiters. He told the waitress what he wanted, and she leaned down to listen. She gave him a smile in return and stroked his hair before turning to leave and returning a little while later with a pen and a piece of paper. Noah started writing as soon as she gave it to him. Amanda wondered what her kid was doing and why as she observed from across the table. You will be really stunned by what Noah scribbled on the paper, as Amanda was. Upon finishing his message, Noah inhaled deeply and proceeded cautiously towards the table where Benitez was seated. The cop was pleasantly sat there enjoying his breakfast, unaware that all of these thoughts were going on around him the entire time. Despite his intense nervousness, Noah summoned the bravery to approach him and hand over the piece of paper. The officer was initially perplexed by the document that Noah had given him and questioned his intentions. Officer Benitez's face flushed as he peered more closely, and Noah just stood there, obviously dumbfounded. Noah surprised the officer by giving Benitez the receipt for his food a few weeks prior. Noah had celebrated his 9th birthday and been given some cash as a present. The little youngster made the decision to save the money until he spotted something he truly desired instead of purchasing a toy. Noah made the kind decision to buy Officer Benitez breakfast with some of his birthday money. However, it was not the case. In addition, Noah had left Benitez a message that was full of extremely real words. Noah wrote a letter to the officer, "I want to be you when I grow up," next to the receipt. "I am appreciative of your assistance. Noah Cummings." The cop was in total amazement and could not believe it. Though there had been many instances where small children had wished to shake the officer's hand and say hello, Officer Benitez was taken aback by the little boy's maturity and actions. After all, who would have thought that a 9-year-old child would pay for their meal? He felt right away that he had to express his gratitude, but that feeling soon faded, and he started to feel anxious when the officer discovered who his mother was. Immediately, Officer Benitez sprung from his chair and begged Noah to take a photo with him. The youngster was ecstatic to have met one of his heroes, and to have a picture taken with him. Amanda was irritated with the police, but she was also ecstatic for her kid and delighted with the way the officer had handled him. She was very proud of her son right now. The cop wanted to return the favor, so he made the one small phone call that would completely change Amanda's life. Later, with great joy, Noah's mother shared the police officer's photo on her social media profile, little imagining the response she would receive. One happy mother. Write a note on his receipt the moment your youngster asks, "Can we pay for an officer's breakfast?" Hundreds of encouraging comments flooded Amanda's post, complimenting Noah on his generosity and large heart, and commending his mother for raising such a kind and compassionate boy. But above all, what transpired was significant. Officer Benitez's colleagues' officers made the decision to get in touch with Amanda and request permission to post the incident on their Facebook page once he remembered what had transpired. Well, Noah, you made a lasting impression on us all today. For all the men and women who put on the uniform every day, your support means the world. We hope you have the most joyous birthday ever. Officer Benitez also wished to give them back for the lovely and heartfelt present. The officer understood what was proper to do after visiting with the mother and hearing her terrible story. He instructed his captain to immediately stop issuing parking fines when he phoned the Tonawanda Police Department, and they were gone in an instant. Just like that, other policemen came out to thank the family for supporting the cops after word of this heartwarming moment went across the police station. Benitez described how moved he was by the message, saying, "It meant everything. It meant that I was expected to get up in the morning, put on this uniform, and go about my business." He told ABC News 7 that, it means that I need to keep trying to be a good example to all these young guys. However, the most of the attention, especially from the media, was focused on the connection between Noah and Officer Benitez. With the policemen and the other officers, Noah has maintained communication. He is allowed to accompany his mother to the police station anytime he pleases as a gesture of their appreciation. He was even let to retain one of the officers' extra badges for show and tell at school. Amanda was at her lowest moment when her son's goodness came through, and, just by being himself, he changed her life. One news outlet in particular became interested in the story. The narrative succeeded in spreading over the entire planet. Comments from South Africa, Norway, Italy, and the Netherlands began to pour in. "He's going to be one great cop," an admirer wrote. "I'm grateful, Noah. You're a decent, considerate person. I wish you well going forward. You also have to have a nice mother. I'm going to make the world a better place and capture the bad guys," Noah stated. In a really heartwarming response, his mother said, "I will be one proud mom if Noah does don the police uniform and badge in 10 years. After the story went viral online, ABC News 7 spoke with Noah and the officer. Officer Benitez even allowed Noah to hop in his patrol car, which of course made Noah's day. Now, the policeman always carries Noah's message with him and tucks it into the front pocket of his uniform. "I'm going to hold on to it for as long as I can, so I have it right here," he remarked.